All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Divulgence. I'm very happy to have another returning guest here today. We have Steve Poikonen from the Slow News Day show, as well as a lot of other great shows, including Union of the Unwanted. Sorry, I wanted to get that right. And I believe it's called AM Wake Up. Is that right?
Yep.
Right on. So, yeah. Hey, how are you doing, Steve? Say hey to the folks and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. No, thanks for having me back on. Been a minute. Good to see you again. And we're coming up on 8 years for Slow News Day and about 3 for AM Wake Up. And basically, it's just AM Wake Up is a little bit more like me trying to recapture the spirit of old school morning radio, where we'll bring in people from all over the place and all over the map and very funny people and stuff like that, and try to have crack as many jokes as we can while we're in the process of giving people their news months to years in advance. And it's like, yeah, it's like Opie and Anthony radio for people who don't believe the official narrative or play into the team sports politics thing. And that's fun as heck. And I got rotating co-hosts with me just about every day of the week for that. So it's always, it's always different and it's always fun. And yeah, I've been, it's my alarm. I've been in the process of trying to figure out stuff like this from my entire adult life, and so it's just kind of a continuing learning journey with dick jokes.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's great. Well, I do all the stuff that I do see you on. I do love it. That's why I tried to bring you on the show initially, and why I wanted to just connect with you. And that's why I wanted to have you back, because now that the show's back, I do want to cover a lot of different stuff. But one thing I do want to try to do every once in a while is cover, current news events and things just going on in the world. So I thought you'd be a great person to bring in and kind of get the ball rolling with that. So yeah, like I said, we're just going to go through a handful of different stuff going on in the States as well as around the world, and I just want to kind of see what your thoughts are, what other people's thoughts are. If anyone in the chat has any comments or questions, please throw them out there. But I guess we'll start with some of the killings and assassinations that have been going on. We'll start with Irina Zarutska. She was killed August 22nd, I believe, of this year in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was killed on a bus. I believe it's a bus, not a train. Killed by DeCarlos Brown Jr. on her way home from working at a pizzeria. She basically died almost immediately at the scene. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this? Like, I know that this Brown character was released. He's been in and out of jail, I think, up to like maybe 14 times, give or take. He was released pretty recently to the incident, and also there was the reported clip of him being heard saying, "I got that white girl." So has that stood up to be in evidence? And what's your thought on this when it comes to race, the general safety of people in the States and just different stuff like that?
This whole event has some of the elements of a false flag to me. I really think that they've been trying to push. When I say they, the shout out to Ryan Christian, the Last American Vagabond, for the acronym, but it's they is the hierarchy enslaving you. Because everybody's like, who do you mean by they? Well, okay, that's what we mean. But the race war stuff has been getting thrown in our faces really for, I don't know, 15 years, maybe a little bit longer at this point. And it seems like every couple of years, there's something that appears to be purely racially motivated that really ratchets up those tensions and gets people finding reasons to either, hate their fellow countrymen because they look different, or hate strangers, or be fearful and not want to go out. They had like a giant 3-year psyop where nobody was allowed to leave their house for a very long time, and that really helped people marinate in their own crazy and their own delusions. And then when they let everybody back out, nobody knew how to talk to each other anymore. It was all just 240 character communication of people trying to one up each other. So I think the pump has been primed for people to go and engage in some pretty uncivilized behavior all the way around. But where this particular thing sits with me is I'm unwilling to think that it was just Buddy nutted up and decided to stab a chick in the neck with apparently like a penknife or something like that. I don't even know what they technically said the murder weapon was. Stabbed in the neck is like basically but he doesn't even look like he's holding anything in the videos that I've seen. So it would have to be a relatively small instrument to begin with. But I don't know. I really feel like it's a created and stage managed event made to make us ready to hate each other again. And then like less than 2 weeks later, you got the Charlie Kirk thing, in the middle of increased and increasing tensions that people have regarding Israel, Gaza in general. And this seemed like a never let a good crisis go to waste type of thing, where you can try to get, if the racial war isn't taking off the way that you wanted to, maybe the partisan wars can take off the way that you want them to. And it's, the season of psyops going into really 2030. I don't see that slowing down much anytime soon.
Yeah. And that essentially, that brings us into the next topic, would be Charlie Kirk. I mean, this one particularly is just turning into, like I guess a lot of these psyops and these killings do, it's turning into another JFK moment where everyone is a detective and they pull out their magnifying glass. And I'm sure you've seen all the crazy different theories going on with whether it be the palm gun, or there's no exit wound, or where's the exit wound, or now there's a new one coming out that maybe he had a microphone in his shirt that he was shot with, or the camera behind him. So and if it's not people trying to be a detective, or if it's not the disgusting people coming out and saying how happy they are that this guy got killed, I feel like, and there's no, I don't want to offend anybody by saying this, but I feel like there's a lot of people out there who, there's a lot of, I'm sure he had a lot of friends, but there seems like there's a lot of people that didn't necessarily talk about him or associate him with in any way. Now they're kind of getting on a soapbox and trying to cash in from this tragedy. Just like you said, don't let a good tragedy go to waste. I think that rings true with a lot of different people. But I guess, my first question with that would just be, how have you been taking his death, and how are you taking things as they come in? Because obviously it's still exploding all over Twitter and the news and all over the place with all these theories. They just had his celebration, his vigil, I believe it was today. So it's just, continuing that wheel to roll, right?
Yeah. Okay, so Charlie Kirk wasn't like super on my radar. I'm I've aged out of his demographic. It's pretty easy to see that he held massive amounts of influence within, campus age or grassroots age Republicans. He was very, very influential as far as a mechanism of, grassroots organizing within the GOP. And apparently had made a very successful living doing it. I think that regardless of how you think he was assassinated, or if you even think he was, even if you think that he's, living on some random witness protection community with potentially a brand new face already and all that kind of, even if you think that, you have to at least recognize all of the things that happened immediately after. And that's within 3 hours of announcing that he had been shot. The Senate voted to once again block the release of the Epstein files. There was an immediate $60 million funding request on behalf of the White House to the Department of Justice in order to start ramping up investigations into potential left-wing groups that may or may not have had foreknowledge of it. An immediate $650 million was given to Israel for some reason.
Right.
Yeah. Not that those are necessarily related, but it did happen as eerily everybody in a position of power in the state of Israel jumped up with the exact same statement about Charlie Kirk and then some vague allusions to, oh, it was probably Arabs. Then we saw the vice president guest host Charlie Kirk's podcast, which was pretty weird, followed by the entire crew from the Daily Wire, who immediately gave $1 million to Turning Points USA after Turning Point, well, Charlie Kirk specifically, apparently rejected millions of dollars from Netanyahu after he was taken to the Hamptons to go get yelled at by Bill Ackman, after he'd been receiving a number of angry phone calls, emails, and text messages from people who were very upset with him because he let Dave Smith speak at an event, and he let Tucker Carlson speak at an event, and Megyn Kelly, people that have openly been questioning the traditional Western media line regarding Israel and their machinations. So when all of the coincidences go one way and all of the benefits go one way, especially when the official story is so full of holes and so ridiculous, to watch a lot of the people shout down anyone asking questions, especially some of the more prominent ones who have been like, oh yeah, well, no, you can't trust the government ever, in Israel specifically, but if you question this, you're reaching and you've got a heart full of hate, and that's just a no-no. You should never do that. That's been very, very interesting.
We'll get into Israel soon, but while we're talking about killers and killies, what are your thoughts on now that Luigi Mangione is back in the news a little bit? There were some charges dropped. They're trying to get the death penalty off the table with him. I know this isn't necessarily new stuff, but what are your thoughts on his actions and what he was trying to accomplish? And is there anything shady going on there?
I mean, there's a number of shady things going on there, even on the surface. Just the way the prosecution has gone about trying their side of the case seems to be legitimately illegal, at least in the eyes of the court. And it's almost like it was, like, you would have to try to bungle your job that bad. So it's a possible out for the case there. I think there's a lot of very weird shot-for-shot recreations of either movies or moments in history that have been incorporated within Luigi's arrest and then detainment. There was the thing where they dressed him identically to Lee Harvey Oswald.
Right.
And then had a member of law enforcement on either side of them that were dressed almost identically to the two men to Lee Harvey Oswald's right and left while they were perp walking him. That was weird. There was the Avengers helicopter landing where they had the mayor of New York and an entire armed escort to like grab this, a guy who shot somebody.
Right.
And then in the meantime, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just sorry to interrupt you, Steve. I was just saying they want to make they clearly want to make a big deal out of it. They want to make a spectacle out of it, more than just someone killing a guy, right?
And then on the inverted end of that, there was the kid who allegedly had CTE and drove or flew out from Vegas, picked up a rifle, unless he drove out with it, went to the same office building that housed ESPN, where he took out a BlackRock real estate CEO and a couple other people. And then they were like, oh, well, we found this note written on him that said he was going after people on ESPN, even though he never did. He went to the wrong floor, took out people in a corporate real estate group, and then went to the 33rd floor of that building and shot himself.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you get the wrong, if you're going to do that, how do you get the wrong floor?
You're in an elevator, first time in a new building, you're a little nervous. Maybe you didn't pull up the kiosk while you were standing there brandishing your assault rifle. Maybe it would have looked a little bit too conspicuous. So you took a hunch, and then you just shot the first white lady you saw, because ESPN, notoriously for being just lousy with white ladies all everywhere in the sports channel building.
Yeah, I thought it was said they were going out of after someone at the NFL, but I mean,
or maybe it was NFL. I can't remember which. But I know it was the wrong building narrative, and that just it. Do you feel like they're lazier now with the psyops that we have to live through than you, or is that just nostalgia for when you were a kid and you didn't really see through it immediately? Because it just seems sloppy to me, all of it.
You'd think that they would want to keep their A game going as much as they can. They want to keep every psyop as good as they can. I mean, the Kennedy ones are pretty tight. I mean, I guess there's a lot of clues and stuff out there that people just don't want to acknowledge. But I don't know, man. That's a good question, because sometimes there's just complete ridiculousness when you're listening to stories on the news or taking reports from the FBI or any sort of governing or law enforcement body, and you just think to yourself, how stupid, or what do they think of us when they're putting this out there, right? So yeah, that's crazy. That's a crazy one. Yeah.
Well, and then with the Charlie Kirk thing, they want you to believe that a 22-year-old trans-loving, furry-adjacent, far left-wing radical went and hopped in his Dodge Charger, which is, known amongst the left as the only vehicle you're supposed to have, which I don't even know why we know he has a Dodge Charger, but we do. Went to the building, managed to get up undetected onto the roof, Mission Impossible to cross it, took a shot with a Mauser 30-06 that Charlie Kirk's Wolverine-like adamantium skeleton somehow absorbed the bullet from, but unfortunately it still went into his neck and killed him. Then he disassembled that rifle, which takes a significant amount of time and usually requires some tools to disassemble a Mauser.
Right.
Put half of it in a backpack, half of it in his shorts or whatever. Ran back while he's doing this, while he's running across the roof, then gets into the woods, decides, no, wait, I should reassemble it, wrap it in a towel, and hide it. FBI initially reported discovering a palm print. They had fake text messages from the dude before they had a match to the palm print. Nobody's ever, no statement from law enforcement, whatever, corroborating the palm print lift and then a match to it, which I find also to be very odd. But acoustic analysis shows that, shot came from much lower to the ground than the position where they said he was. This dude has all of the hallmarks of a patsy. His boyfriend, dude, there's no digital footprint of them until the FBI has now said, oh, we have it. But prior to that, there isn't any. The whole thing is just very, very, very inconsistent with realities. And then the Civil War love letter home-esque type text messages that the FBI said they found between the two of them where the boyfriend is only listed as roommate, and he's like, "Good afternoon, my lover. I must confess I have done these horrible things to you. I exited my vehicle." It really does. It's like they let some 55-year-old law enforcement dude be like, "Okay, talk like a 22-year-old kid now." It's I don't know. So you can't believe the official story because the official story has more holes in it than the red light district did. Netherlands. It's inconsistent with reality. It's incoherent. But what you should believe, I don't know. I can't tell you. There's a lot of things that don't make sense about this.
So and now he's not talking, right? I think he's still not talking, if that's correct.
Yeah, admitting no guilt, pled not guilty in his arraignment, not cooperating with law enforcement, which again is something that, like, throughout history, a lot of the people who were stitched up as patsies have done. Been like, "No, dude, I'm not talking. I'm not a part of this. Get me out of here."
So is it still the current narrative that he was a he wasn't a furry, but he was dating a furry?
Right. And also was a huge fan of Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Has that been proven though? I mean,
no, but nothing else has either. So why stop short when you could just keep going? Yeah.
That just seems like one of the ones that's easy to disprove because I don't think his ideology necessarily falls with the Groypers or whatever. But I guess we don't really know what his ideology is necessarily. Who knows?
Yeah.
Crazy. All right, let's move into. I want to talk a little bit about like free speech. The U.S. is having a problem with free speech. The U.K. is having a problem. A lot of places seem to be having a problem with free speech. But I guess first we'll talk about the Jimmy Kimmel suspension. I mean, I didn't find what he said to be all that controversial necessarily. I mean, I didn't find it all that funny either, but whatever.
Right.
I don't find him all that funny. But I mean, there's a lot of people that are now saying, well, he wasn't making money. He was going to get fired before all this happened. There's the fact that, Trump has put his crosshairs on Jimmy in the past. So what are your thoughts on this little debacle? Now people are protesting. So, I mean, and it's pretty hypocritical, but I mean, I don't know. What do you see this as?
I mean, it seems like a great way to create a distraction in the midst of Charlie Kirk's assassination and to get the team sport politic people to be like, okay, well, we don't care about your guy that you say got shot for free speech. We care about our guy who we never watched, and his ratings prove that, who got fired for free speech, and getting fired for free speech is way worse than getting shot for it. So, you should go ahead and believe that. Late night talk shows have been taking a hit for a decade. Yeah, I mean, and really, as online streaming and podcasts have become more prevalent and have proven themselves to be more entertaining, where you can get long form conversations with people who aren't brain dead celebrities, it's been taking a big old hit. So I'm sure that part of it was a financial decision on behalf of ABC. Trump is taking credit for it. The right wing is taking credit for it. They're like, no, we Karen'd up like crazy, called every manager we could think of. They have a huge database of people who are making like, what they've deemed to be inappropriate tweets about Charlie Kirk, where they claim to have gotten hundreds, if not thousands, of people fired just in the past week. It's a complete inversion of where they were even a year and a half ago, as far as any of this is. It's I don't know. Like the entire ant jar just got shaken up really hard over the last 11, 12 days. And people are reacting like they've been programmed to react for a very long time now, and it's disappointing. But at the same time, it's what people have been getting primed for, and so they're doing what they think they're supposed to do, which is dumb, but also predictable. And so I think that if you're trying to do some sort of social control, and if you're trying to do it on a large scale, then you would have to have high profile events to give people something to react to.
Right. And like you were going through, a lot had happened during the time that after Charlie Kirk was killed. A lot happened that not many people noticed, right? You mentioned the Epstein files. You mentioned the money going to Israel. There's also didn't Mark Rubio, his people, they have a lot more power now to I don't know if it's to yank passports or citizenships or something like that, but it all goes into free speech. And what are your thoughts on what Pam Bondi was recently saying about about free speech and how not all speech is free? And
well, and Trump echoed that too. I don't know if you've seen that clip the air got published today, but we got to remember who Pam Bondi is. Pam Bondi was the Florida State AG during the first high-profile prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein, and she's the one that helped negotiate the deal for Epstein to have work release, where he could go from jail to his office for up to 12 hours a day. That was one of the things that really got her on a political map and upward trajectory. So she's not. I see sometimes this narrative that she's somehow new to the game. You don't get to be, thank you, babe. You don't get to be the attorney general of the entire United States if this is your first job. That she's some sort of political neophyte. She's been in this game for long enough to have been dealing with the Epstein case for nearly 20 years now. So for her to show up and then come in basically cracking skulls from day one makes a lot of sense to me, because it's what the trajectory of the empire has been going toward for a very long time. And we've been warning about stuff like this on the shows for years at this point, and trying to call attention to all of the little steps that are happening along the way. Now that we're basically from the federal standpoint, from the White House, from the Department of Justice, and from a huge segment of Congress critters too, that hate speech is anything that we don't like, and if enough people say it, then you're a hate speech outlet. So Trump just sued the New York Times, I think, $15 billion in a defamation lawsuit, which is never going to happen. Absolutely never going to happen.
I think it got tossed, didn't it?
Did it get tossed? I thought it was a brand new suit.
Oh, another one? Oh, God.
Yeah. I could be wrong about that. But
no, just 2 days ago they threw it out.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, which again, frivolous lawsuit should be tossed out. You know, I don't care who's filing them. That's crazy. But that also leads for the argument. Well, if the courts aren't going to do anything to upload hate speech, we'll do it by executive order. We'll do it by this. And that's been Trump's default since he got in for his second round. It was just governance by executive order. So, okay, well, the lower courts aren't listening to me, Donald Trump. So I'm going to sign an EO that says they have to. And if they want to challenge that in court, they've got to do it in a court that is more favorable to me. So it's a win-win.
On the other side, across the pond, what do you feel about the story of Graham Linehan getting arrested by armed cops at an airport for tweets?
That's another level of insanity. The Five Eyes countries have been trading off on who does the craziest stuff with speech and various other things for a very long time, but it all circulates. So whatever is happening in the UK is headed here, and whatever is happening here is headed to the UK and Australia, and the rest of them. Definitely Canada, definitely New Zealand, especially if you look back a few years during the COVID thing, where they were basically using all of those countries as open air freaking laboratories to try out all kinds of draconian stuff. Where Graham is concerned, I mean, this is a huge presence in UK media. Like, he's revered by a lot of people, and it's only been in the last couple of years where there's been this huge pushback against very, very beloved personalities in entertainment, J.K. Rowling, because she was like, made her statements on the whole trans issue. Graham Lineman for the same thing. So he's getting an even harsher treatment than J.K. Rowling got, because as far as I know, she can still travel freely.
Right.
Graham Lineman lives in the United States. He was going to do an event in Scotland, I think. He doesn't even live in the UK anymore. And yeah, we landed in Heathrow. He was hemmed up and put through the ringer. I think sometimes they try to go after very, very high profile people just to see what the public reaction is going to be. You can't implement every part of a plan all at once. It's very difficult to do that. So you have to have, I guess, shit tests, for a lack of a better phrase for it, to gauge where the populace is at. And I look at that as one of them.
Do you see a difference between cancel culture and consequence culture? I've been hearing a lot about this. Personally, I think they're both the same. It's just a different way of looking at things. But now we're starting to see this rise of quote unquote consequence culture now, with people getting fired for saying things about Charlie Kirk, or saying things about trans people, or all sorts of nonsense, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's we've entered into an escalation phase, and it's the inverse of what was happening during the Biden administration and the tail end of Trump's first administration, where the political left, for lack of a better term, had the reins on cancel culture, and we're getting all kinds of people fired or suspended from their jobs for saying things that they didn't like. And now, the ball's in the other court. And so the political right is doing the exact same thing. And it's not even an eye for an eye. It's just, we've been living under politics of spite, I think, for most of this century. George Bush was supposed to be W. Bush was supposed to be like a reckoning answer to, the latte liberal class. And he was just some cowboy that you could have a beer with, even though he didn't drink, and all that. And it just really garnered a lot of animosity on the left for the right. Again, they hadn't really been that angry since the early Reagan years. And it's sort of snowballed ever since. Barack Obama, very divisive figure in his own right, but all of that just sort of rippled out to where people that are caught up in that red team, blue team stuff really picked up the animosity and ran with it, picked up how to divide a community and ran with it. Trump was the answer to Obama. And we all know how that went the first time, the riots in the streets and stuff like that. I love Jim Brewer's joke where the left immediately put on the Pootsie hats and marched, and Brewer goes, "Oh, they knew what a woman was back then, didn't they?"
Yeah.
God bless Jim Brewer, by the way. Love Jim Brewer.
Yeah, same here, man.
But I mean, it's, and so we're living under the politics of spite. They've been doing it in the UK forever. We haven't had a situation where the response to politicians you don't like is to shoot them en masse, like a lot of other countries have experienced lately. It's been 60 or so years since we've hung out like that in the U.S., but we had the Congress critters, state level Congress critters in Minnesota that got shot earlier this year. There was the Democrat one who got shot or Steve Scalise, he got shot at a baseball game. There was Gabby Giffords, the Congresswoman from Arizona, who got shot at a rally. So it's been increasing, and I would say that in all likelihood, Charlie Kirk was headed towards a more public service oriented political future down the road. Trump said he could be president. It's one of those things where you can't consider what happened to Charlie Kirk anything other than a political assassination. So we've re-entered that arc of our own history now, and that never bodes well, especially when we've got all these neat little surveillance toys and ways to debank people and ways to deperson or deplatform or demonetize or this, that, and the third that weren't necessarily available even 10 years ago. So the technology is caught up to a lot of the rhetoric, and it's a very interesting time.
What's the, maybe you know better than me, but what's the current status in the States when it comes to criticizing Israel? I mean, are you like, I know people are getting like attacked for it, but isn't there people also starting to get fired now and other people serving other consequences for criticizing Israel? I mean, what was the power that the Secretary of State recently got when it comes to criticizing Israel? Is it that they can pull your passport, or is it they can cancel your citizenship applications, or what was it?
So a couple of different things happened. Marco Rubio wants to be able to strip passports.
Okay.
That hasn't become codified into U.S. law yet, but that's something that's been floated about. We've seen the Trump administration yank funding from various different universities, colleges. There have been people who have been fired over their stance. There have been people who have been deported over their stance on Israel. That's happened throughout the last 70 years. But it's, in the age of the internet, there's a lot more awareness of it. Happened over in the UK as well. There were a number of college professors that got canned as a result of comments they'd made about the fact that Israel's been live streaming a genocide for the last 2 years nearly. And it's really hard to ignore that. And unless you're just pro-genocide, it's really hard to defend it, or at least pro-specific genocide. It's really hard to defend it. The National Defense Authorization Act that just recently got passed, the House version of it has a provision in it that Lauren Boebert put in saying that the Pentagon would no longer do business with companies who had relationships with people who advocated the boycott, divest, and sanctions policy against the state of Israel. So, I mean, it's legislatively and then throughout corporate America, and the university system, it is moving that way more and more at a federal and state level. There's already 38 states that have anti-BDS legislation on the books. I am not a math magician, but that seems like a majority of U.S. states. It's a very, very weird time for that. I know that we're shadow banned to hell and gone all over social media and even on Rumble, and we've openly criticized not just the IDF and the Israeli government, but people that make all of those platforms possible, like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, and refer to the vice president as Peter Thiel's golf glove because he is. And have paid a significant price as far as reach goes because of that. Not going to stop, still going to call it out, but it's been very, very prevalent.
Do you see this getting better or worse? Like, do you think people are going to start pushing back and saying this is obviously infringement of, my freedom of speech, freedom of thought, all that stuff? Or do you think the other side's just going to keep pushing and, outside interests are going to prevail?
Well, that side's already been pushed into a corner. And that does dovetail with the whole Charlie Kirk conversation, too, because from October 8th, if not maybe October 15th, the Israeli government, the ADL, most of the Hasbara riders in the West have all been screaming that the kids, the 18 to 25, 35-year-olds, have the lowest level of support for Israel anytime since they've been tracking that. And they're losing that conversation. So it's been a very public sort of plea on Jonathan Greenblatt's part and a bunch of these other people. They need to reclaim the hearts and minds of young Americans, specifically young Westerners, certainly, to get them back on board with Israel's line of thinking. So they've been screaming about this for 18 to 20 months, 22 months, something like that. And then miraculously, the guy who was running the largest conservative campus organization, not just in the US, but in a number of other Western and Westernized countries, gets assassinated in front of his own kids. And who should step in to fill those shoes? Nobody other than Ben Shapiro. That's what he said. We're going to pick up that bloodstained microphone. We're going to go to the events, and we're going to do that. So now you've got an opportunity, even if you've lost people over the last 4 or 5 years, you've now got the opportunity to gatekeep the worldview of everybody coming up. And that, I'm sure, is a powerfully attractive option to people who want to get narrative control on the side of Israel again.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that jumped up and want to pick up that bloodstained microphone. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, that definitely poses a great gatekeeping dilemma for sure. Especially if they're going to be going around to younger folks, right? Get them while they're forming, right? And they're forming their opinions and. Jesus, that's kind of scary.
And shower people with trips to the Holy Land and do what Israel has traditionally done for decades, where it's it winds up being on U.S. taxpayer dime, but through no expense of the person to go take these tours and get exposed to even higher leveled up propaganda on behalf of that, on behalf of the government there. So it's like, again, when all of the coincidences break one way and benefit one group of people, it's really difficult to look at them as coincidences. Highly agree. Taxation is theft. Yeah. We put it in the intro to our show.
Yeah, I wonder if people are going to realize that one. People need to look back at the history of taxes and income taxes and all that and give a head a shake. We need to change some things there. But I mean, the world's so constructed on spending money and going into debt that would just, imagine the chaos that would cause.
Who would build road? Like, it's just so ridiculous. It really is. It's it doesn't matter what government. The state is an illegitimate entity that only exists through extortion and theft and violence, or at least the threats of those things. The sooner people shed partisan blinders and pick up on that, the better chance we all have of not being 100% victims to it for the rest of our natural born lives.
Let's see. We can talk about a few more things. What are your thoughts? I mean, we don't have to get too deep into this, but it is early, but it is an interesting thought. Like 2028 is pretty far away still, obviously. We're not even in a year into Trump 2.0, but do you think, I mean, I feel like the Democrats are pumping up to just have like a generational run of the next few presidencies, do you think that the Democrats can pick up the pieces? I mean, I feel like they have a lot of problems. Like, I know that both sides have a lot of problems, but I feel like the Democrats have a lot of problems with losing their own people and just being so far out there sometimes that, just shooting their own foot off. So, what are your thoughts on that? And I mean, are there any people that you could think of that are more sensible that we're just not hearing more of on the Dem side?
It's not even about sensible anymore. It's about who's going to be the most compliant figurehead for power. And so, I mean, we've seen if 4 years of Joe Biden doesn't tell you that the Democrats really don't care what kind of moron they throw up there. They just need somebody in the seat so that, you know, their goons can run around behind the scenes, changing the landscape of the country and forcing us into this dystopian shit show. I don't know what else would, but I do see them very strongly pushing Gavin Newsom.
Right.
I see either a possible Gavin Newsom with Vice President, little Sandy Cortez, AOC, Vice President. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Nina, I've been saying that for a couple of years now. Like, he's being positioned for that presidency spot. And it's not about who's going to be more sane. It's not about who's going to be, it's never about who's most confident or reliable, who you're most confident with that can do the job. It's about who can distract the most, divide the most, cause the most chaos, while everything from Agenda 2030 is getting put into play. We just saw a couple of days ago Trump in the UK at Windsor Castle with Sam Altman and Larry Ellison, the Microsoft dude, and the Nvidia dude, and it was just all of the tech oligarchs with a show of opulence from the Anglo-American establishment. And they don't, in as much as they do kind of need a percentage of the country to buy into their horseshit, the largest group of voting age adults in the United States are people who don't vote. The second largest voting bloc is people who are registered independent or no party preference, or the minorities as far as the voters go are for the team sport, red team, blue team nonsense.
Okay.
Yeah, so they really don't need a majority of the country to go along with it. They just need the media apparatus in place and the regular red team, blue team goofballs who are always and only going to be the public relations arm of oligarchy. So that means, what do we do about it? And a lot of that has to do with never buying into their crap ever again.
Sure.
Never falling into it, and then doing the stuff that we've all been talking about for years in terms of getting to know the people who grow and produce the food that you can't grow and produce in your own space. Almost everybody does have some sort of local rancher. Almost everybody does have some, and by local I mean within like 70 miles.
Sure.
The people who aren't pumping all kinds of weird hormones into chickens and stuff like that. A couple of years ago, when the price of eggs went through the roof, everyone got backyard chickens, and just kind of, market demand drove it down, saying, okay, well, we're done buying your crap. That scares these people more than just about anything. The moment we're like, no, we have this figured out without you, now we're going to go do it. That requires us communicating with each other more and more often, and a lot more cross-pollination between audiences and things like that, just so that they can get introduced to people that they might live very close to, but just never knew, because the information bubble that everybody is in, or the algorithmic bubble that everybody's in, has prevented us from getting to know what's going on around us, but we're all very aware of what's going on geopolitically.
So you think that were very salvageable. Obviously, that if we can get more people voting and those people, wake those people up, and to not put up with their shit, we could turn the tide.
It's so much more than that. And yes, I'm 100% white pilled, or freaking intergalactic, but whatever. I don't know.
Right
I don't have any like doom and gloom in my day, none whatsoever. I think that more people understand that the official narrative is almost always garbage, if not always garbage. They just don't know what to do about it. And people need to remember that we have solved a lot of these problems before. It's just there's been a replacement with, now you have to ask Grok if you're going to make a decision.
Right.
Outsourced all your critical thinking to ChatGPT. Outsourced all your critical thinking to whatever blue check Twitter account or massive mainstream alternative media podcast. And so they're doing all the thinking for you, and you just have to go about your day knowing that you're right in your thought, and that, as long as you're siding with the current power structure, they're probably not going to come for you. I reject all of that nonsense.
I respect that, man. Big time. Here's a big question. What are your thoughts? Are we ever going to see the Epstein files? Is there anything that still exists that's worth seeing? Or by the time we do see it, is there going to be anything worth seeing? What are your thoughts on that now that we've had that vote that, it's been blocked yet again from any releasing?
10 years ago, Nick Bryant released the Black Book.
Right.
There have been a number of people that have done an immense amount of scholarship, research, and journalism about this. I always tell people, if you want to see what would be on the Epstein list, because number one, there is no such thing. There's no list.
Yeah.
It's if you want to get to as close to that as possible, go get One Nation Under Blackmail, Volume 1 and 2 by Whitney Webb, and read that. And as a research and reference material, that's going to get you as close to it as anything else, because almost all of that information is already publicly available. Almost all of that information has been out in this sphere for a very long time. The fact that we were waiting for the government that was involved in participating in this horrendous crap and the cover up for it to come out and tell us the truth about it, I thought was ultimate. Heck yeah. And that Volume 2 in particular is
Volume 1 right now.
Current list. Well, the Volume 2 one, that's where you get the bulk of information about the more recent elements of this and potentially where it's headed, which it also has a lot to do with Peter Thiel and Larry Ellison and a bunch of the guys that are just hand in glove in the Trump administration now.
So yeah, obviously there's no list. I mean, you can make a list if you wanted to have a list, but I guess yeah. So I guess what you're trying to say is we got to kind of work with what we have to understand kind of what was going on. But as for getting definitive answers, we may not get those details, which is just, I mean, I guess it's not so shocking, but it's just disgusting that political power and elitism just totally kiboshed the right thing, and a lot of kids and young girls and other people just have their lives ruined, and a lot of fucked up shit going on that just gets swept under the carpet, right?
I mean, that's kind of the name of the game when it comes to bloodline pedophiles exacting their little bloodline pedophile feuds across international borders, using the citizenry as cannon fodder. And we're right back to that, whether it's everybody in the country is a domestic violent extremist now, or France has been on fire, the UK has been wall to wall with people screaming about a lot of the things that have been happening in that country, whether it's immigration or the police or, the government in and of itself. The UK government has basically been in a state of near free fall for the last 5 to 7 years. France has gone through, I think they're on their 5th prime minister in like 2 years. Same president with Macron, but Macron is up to his eyeballs in lawsuits against Candace Owens now. He has no time to govern the country or anything. And there's one really easy way to prove that. If they're going to sue Candace, all they have to do is march that freak in and give it a live DNA swab test right there in the middle of the courtroom and be like, all right, everybody go back to your hotels for a little bit. We've got 7,000 people guarding this one person to take this into the lab and get results. You could settle it right then and there that way. Real easy. Not going to happen, but you could.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of things could easily happen, but unfortunately won't. Just like someone in the chat here brought up RGZ Mac. How come someone hasn't just hacked some of these documents and found them, right?
Right. Well, again, unless you've got a program that's going to unredact them, and then you can prove that they're the original documents, that's going to be difficult. Okay. But again, almost all of this stuff has been out in the open for at least a decade. We know who a lot of these people are. We know it's also very difficult to bring people that powerful to any sort of semblance of justice. So I think that's where the black pill mentality that a lot of people are walking around with comes into place, where they're like, oh, we're never going to see any justice for this. So, now we can just totally check out. Yeah. And I think that most of the quote unquote real hackers have been getting snagged up very early on and are all working at places like Northrop Grumman or Brown, Kellogg and Root or, Brown Harriman and all of these other intelligence contractors, because you do get that, you can either have the silver or you can have the lead, or, you can come work for us or you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, kind of thing with hacking. And the ability to avoid that got kind of good for a little bit, but then the technology caught up and it's been, I basically just an entrapment operation ever since.
I feel like we can talk about technology all day, so maybe we'll save that for another time. I was going to ask you a few questions maybe about AI and whatnot, but we can save that for another time. Sure. This has been a great chat. Before we do go, though, can you tell people what you got going on, where they can find you, all that good stuff, my friend?
Yeah. So I'm on Rumble and BitChute and Odyssey, putting out content 7 days a week. There's a number of other shows that I simulcast onto those channels. We're also on Substack. That's a very new thing, but we're building over there. Okay. The show operates on a value for value system. So it's 8 years of not taking any nary a dime from outside advertisers or paid sponsorships or anything like that. It's an entirely audience and producer based community. The audience is the producers, which isn't always the easiest, but I think it's like the only way that you can really, if you're trying to do this for a living, I think it's the only way you can really sleep well at night. We have been since 2022 throwing these events called the Third Eye Carnival, which in the wake of COVID lockdowns, myself and documentary filmmaker and writer and absolute genius T. Snyder, who co-hosts with me on Wednesdays, have been if you go to thirdeyecarnival.com too, you can see this upcoming one's lineup. Absolute banger. But we were like, we really need to get people together. We really need to have them engaging in the kinds of conversations that we do in the online space, but in the real world. So in a little less than a month in El Paso, Texas, we're going to be doing our Third Eye Carnival this year. The spring one was just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Our third annual one in Pueblo, Colorado was over 4th of July weekend. Now we're in El Paso, always looking for venues to do this too, or like patches of dirt where we can pull these events off. But 5 bands on Friday, live podcast panels, and a full-on marketplace on Saturday. And then 2 bands, including Michael Graves, who used to front the Misfits following Glenn Danzig's departure. He's been doing his own thing for a number of years now and just absolutely killing it. So very stoked that he's going to be involved in this. And again, we are looking to build these out. Potentially we'll be in Florida, upstate New York, southern Indiana, and hopefully out here on the West Coast, along with the other ones that we're doing next year. All of these are designed to be replicated, not necessarily scaled up. And it really is going to come down to, pockets of community networking with each other to figure out how to move beyond the confines of the state if we want any sort of success going forward with this. So we're just providing a venue where people can come and hang out, listen to real music, listen to real comedy, listen to, and take part in conversations that aren't mired in surface level psyop bullshit. From what I can tell, everybody has a good time while they're there. We had great stand up in Nashville with Sam Tripoli and Leonardo Joni and Brad Binkley. Kurt Metzger crashed the party for a little bit, was on the panel with us for a couple hours. Very, very fun.
That's awesome.
And yeah, just, trying to keep all that going. But yeah, if you ever have the opportunity to get to one of these, they are very, very fun. We also go out of our way to make it affordable. We don't make shit off of these. We just want asses in the seats and people there. So you get 3 days of live music and live podcasts and stuff like that for $75 for this one in El Paso. It's a screaming deal. So if you're anywhere near the area, October 17th through 19th, you want to come check it out, by all means, please do. And yeah, I mean, maybe eventually in 5 years or something like that, we'll see a little bit on the back end from it, but that's not the point right now. The point right now is to get them established and get them going and get people talking to each other again, because I think there's been a definite war on the idea of community. And we would like to turn the tables on that. The address link is thirdeyecarnival.com.
That's that's the main link?
For the events, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My website is currently down, but you can find the show at AM Wake Up everywhere but YouTube, since I'm not allowed there.
Fair enough. Well, that's cool, man. Being in Canada, it would be a little hard for me to get there on such short notice, but take my word for it. I will definitely, once next year rolls around and you start planning it, we'll connect, and I would definitely love to come check it out. But for those of you who are in the States and it's a little easier to travel over there, I would definitely say check that out. Steve's a great guy. He runs a lot of great shows. He's a part of a lot of great shows and a lot of great stuff. He does boots on the ground work and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely check him out. Check out his stuff. Check out his shows. And yeah, thanks again for coming on the show, Steve.
Heck yeah, man. Thank you for having me. Let's do this again.
All right, I would love to. And
shout out to your chat too. They seem to be engaged and on it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to everyone watching and everyone in the chat. We hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe to Divulgence Podcast on YouTube, and we'll have a lot more great stuff coming your way. Thanks a lot, guys.